Welcome to the Cookbook, where we invite guests on to share the ingredients of what has helped make them the successes that they are. All of it, the good, the not so good. You're not going to find anything half-baked here. And our kitchen gets messy sometimes. That's when the fun starts. So come on and join us. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cookbook. I'm your host, Iris Goldfeder, and I am so super excited about our guest today, Lorraine Ball. Lorraine and I have known each other for a gazillion years, and she knew me when I first started out as a little wee marketer and had really no idea what I was doing. But we've, reconnected, and I'm so super glad because she's just really awesome. So I'm going to read her bio and bring her on. So after spending too many years in corporate America, Lorraine said goodbye to the bureaucracy, glass ceilings, and bad coffee to follow her passion to help small business owners succeed. And if you're from New York and you're in the Midwest, you know that the Midwest does not have good coffee. But I digress. Today, the successful entrepreneur, author, and professional speaker enjoys sharing what she knows about marketing and presentations to groups around the country, in college classrooms, and in her weekly podcast, More Than a Few Words. She brings creative ideas, practical tips, and decades of real-world experience to every conversation. In her spare time, she loves to travel and take photos. So, without further ado, let's meet Lorraine.
Hello, hey. Iris. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fabulous. Thanks for the invite to join you today.
No, absolutely. And I know that I'm supposed to be on yours and that whole thing got screwed up, but we'll make that happen. But I'm just so glad that we reconnected, because one of the things that sticks out in my mind was when we were in Indy, and it was like, I think the first or second time I met you, and Desiree was there. And then you and I sat and we started talking, and I realized that I knew less about marketing than I thought I did, which was good though, because that's not a bad thing, because the way that I was looking at it was a little bit different, and you kind of gave me a different insight. And so it really kind of helped kick me on the right path and my career of choice. So I know you didn't know that, but I'm letting you know that. So thank you.
Well, I'm so glad. And I love that you say, that you thought you didn't know as much. You discovered you didn't know as much about marketing as you thought, because that's the sign of a great marketer. Because even after all of these years of doing it, I will tell you, I still don't know as much as I think I do.
Right? We're always works in progress. I think when we stop learning is when, we stop working or whatever.
Yes. And especially because this is a field that has accelerated. It was pretty calm comparatively when I was doing marketing for corporate. It had not changed a whole lot in probably 10 years. And I can look back over the years that I ran the agency, and oh my God, it's like this curve that just accelerates, and it's going faster and faster.
Yeah. And, digital has changed everything. Well, tell us about you and your journey and all the things.
All the things. I love when people go, well, tell us about your journey. And all I can see is this bumpy road, because I'm totally not doing what I thought I was going to do, but I'm doing what I love doing. I started actually as a teacher. I have an undergraduate in education. And so I've kind of come full circle, and I'm really enjoying that part of my skill set. But I ended up in corporate and lived that life for quite a while, had the fancy corner office, had the VP title. And one day I woke up and realized that I was way more entrepreneurial than the people around me. Right. That I was always starting these skunkwork projects and finding ways to do things. And then, even though it was working, I'd be running into these obstacles because it didn't fit with where the corporation was going, or it was just out of sync, or they just couldn't get their head around what I was trying to do. And I thought, you know what? I can do this on my own. And so I took the very best of everything that I learned, all the systems and processes, and started a business and ran round peg for 19 years. and had a lot of fun along the way.
Yeah.
Grew and changed and started a podcast and an online training program and ran a couple of conferences. And then one day somebody came along and said, "Hey, would you like to sell your company?" And I thought, would you like to pay me for my company?
Right.
And surprisingly,
paying me well for my company?
And paying me well for my company. And they did. And I kept the things that were connected to me. The intellectual property, the podcast, the online training. None of that made any sense if I wasn't in the middle of it. So I didn't sell it. And so here I am on the other end of that journey, and I'm back to teaching again. I teach marketing at a local university. I do seminars, and I still host a podcast, and I'm still having lots of fun.
See, and that's the whole thing, is about having fun. I mean, when I got back into this, and Kofi was telling me for years, you need to be doing video, you need to be doing a podcast. And I was like, I never need to do video, and I never need to be on a podcast. I just didn't feel it, because I had my business, and I was still trying to figure out what it was. And then I got into a partnership that, ended. And, my whole thing is, I got COVID, I got sick. I didn't, know if I was going to make it or not. And then a year later, I found out that I was. And the day that I found out that I was, I called Kofi and I said, okay, I'm ready for the podcast. Let's, because when I found out, you find out you're going to live, and when you don't even, know whatever, it was like, let's do all the things. So, he came over, and it was like, okay, we need a name. So what's going to go with Gasstovecreative? So we came up with the cookbook, and that was great. We were like, oh, great. And, so we had that. And then, recipes, for success in business and marketing. Okay, great. It, all went. And everything just started really taking off from there, because once I got my hands around, or I got my brain wrapped around doing the podcast, the marketing stuff just kind of fell into place. It was just this really weird synergistic thing that it was like, I am where I'm supposed to be, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Absolutely.
So I get it. When it aligns, it just feels amazing.
It really does. And, there are people, I get approached all the time. Hey, I can help you monetize your podcast, and you'll make millions of dollars, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you don't understand. That's not where I am right now. The thing I love best about the podcast, and I'm writing more again because now I have the time to do that as well. I like sharing the ideas. I also like the learning that goes with it. The fact that if I'm going to continue to be relevant to my audience, I need to stay on top of my game. Right. And the third thing I love about the podcast, I have met amazing people, not only all over the country, but all over the world. Yeah. And I was in Boston not too long ago, and I had breakfast with somebody. I'd never met her, but she'd been on my podcast, and I felt like I knew her. Yeah. And so to have that in-person opportunity, it's really fun. And so you mentioned I like to travel. I like to figure out, do I know anybody in this market? And, can we meet for coffee or a drink and connect in person? Because that's really what makes it worthwhile.
Yeah, I agree 100. So we were just in Germany, and, I'm in the Dames. And one of the dames lives in Stuttgart, and we were in Munich, and had things not been a complete shit show, we would have been able to have met, but it wasn't in the cards at this time. But I agree with what you say as far as, the knowledge that you gain, right, from the people that are on the podcast. Kofi's in the background, but, we did a year review last year, and the amount of knowledge that he gleans from the guests, right, he uses. And, for me, it's like hearing people's journeys, learning from them as well. And then it turned out that the first year, most of the people that I had on were dames, because that's who I was in, like, the groups with. And last October, we had what's called the Funference in Denver, and I got to meet the people.
Oh, nice.
And it was, and you're talking like a ton of people, but the amazing thing is that the energy was almost even better in person. Because now, right, you're like connecting with that person. It's like when we finally have pizza again, it's not going to be, like this. So yeah, it's like, the world is a lot smaller now, right?
It is. If you choose to let it be, you can either feel like the world is a lot bigger or a lot smaller. And, I love where we've gotten to with being able to use digital to make connections, to stay in touch in between, the conversations. I mean, I have a friend I have not seen in 30 years, but because of Facebook, because of other digital tools, we're still in each other's lives, and we Zoom every now and then, and we still have conversations, and it doesn't feel like it's been that long.
Right.
And so that's a wonderful part of this.
Yeah. And when I say that the world is smaller, it's like everybody's closer is what I mean.
You're right.
The world is still big because we go out, we travel, we do things, but it keeps people closer. Connected. And I really, I love that about this. So, the show, of course, is, about entrepreneurship and all that. And you kind of touched on what made you become an entrepreneur. But was it the, and I hate to bash corporate, because a lot of people, corporate is good, for some, and it's not for others. Was it just that I'm just done with corporate, or was it that, you know what, I want to do this thing, and I want to do my thing?
It's kind of a little bit of both. What's funny is, after I started the business, I was looking through some boxes and I found the essay that I had written when I applied to grad school. And in it, I talked about the idea that what I really wanted to do when I got my graduate degree was start a consulting company working with small businesses, because they were so clueless. And then I went to grad school and I fell in love with some of the corporate marketing stuff. And I loved my time in corporate till I didn't. I had a lot of opportunity. I had a lot of great bosses. I had a lot of fun. But there was this moment where I realized that I was kind of on a treadmill, that I might change companies, I might change titles, but I was still going to be running into the same brick walls. And so I really wanted to go off and try the consulting and small business thing. And that's when I found this article and I went, it's just, it's been sitting there 20 years. It's time to drag it out and actually do it. Wow. And it's funny because what I thought I was going to do when I got out, I thought I was going to teach business owners and managers how to build high performance teams. Because even though I know marketing and I'm really good at marketing, a lot of my corporate experience was about my abilities with teams. And I would get hired to fix broken teams and turn around organizations. And I thought, well, I can teach other businesses to do this. Well, the funny thing was, this was 2002. And unlike today, there were more people than jobs. Now there are more jobs than people.
Yeah.
And so companies really weren't all that interested in investing money in building high performance teams because people were disposable.
Yeah.
So while I was chasing that dream, people kept coming to me saying, "Hey, Lorraine, I know you used to do marketing. Can you help me with?" And one day I woke up and I looked around and I realized I had a marketing business. And I just kind of embraced it and said, okay, this is, I'm having fun. This is good. I'm good at this. And I'm just not I'm not any good. I'm good at team building. I'm not any good at selling team building.
Gotcha.
You mentioned Des. She is Desiree Garcia is phenomenal. She's an amazing woman.
Amazing.
And I've had the privilege of working with her on things. It's been a number of years, but I have tremendous respect for her. She is doing what I thought I wanted to do. The difference was she figured out how to sell it. She figured out how to take what she really loved and present it in a way that it made sense to people. And what I figured out about myself was marketing made more sense to me. And so because it made more sense to me, it was easier for me to sell it to other people.
Right. And I have to get Des on. That's another story. But I mean, and again, it's something that resonates with us. So when it resonates with us, I've had one of my issues with sales was that I don't like sales. I don't like selling to people. I don't like convincing people that they should work with me. Mm-hmm. I like to find somebody who has a problem that I can offer a solution to. That's it. I don't, and that's what it is for me. And, I've worked with people where they're like, oh, we need 100 people. And and I don't care if you know them or not. We just want 100 people. And it's like, no, I can't. That's not me. I need to build that relationship. Right. And for me, when I build that relationship, I really care about the people that I work with and that I work for in a sense.
Well, that was the thing about the agency was we had a very human-centered approach. And we built long-term relationships with clients. And in an industry where people turned over their agencies every 2 or 3 years, they went off to find the next shiny thing. I had clients that came and went, but I had a handful of clients who had been with me 5, 6, 10, 13 years.
Yeah.
When I sold the business, I called them personally because, we had that kind of relationship. One of the guys was a flooring contractor, and I walked into his office the other day because we were changing the flooring in our house. And he's like, "Oh my God, you're hiring me." I'm like, "Of course I'm hiring you. Who else would I hire?" Right. I've been writing about the best flooring company in Indianapolis for a decade. And, those relationships are what transformed the business into a joy. Mm-hmm. And those relationships are what not only kept the clients, but also helped me hold on to employees who also built those relationships with each other and with the customers.
Yeah. And it's those relationships that are the glue, right? Mm-hmm. That kind of, because you can call them up and be like, "Hey, let's go out for dinner. Let's talk about your stuff, but let's talk about it over dinner." The kids' names, the things that are important. And, to me, that's like that's my joy is, being able to have that relationship. I have a client who I've been working with over a couple of years, and she's out in Denver. We never met. And when I went to Denver in October, we finally got to meet. Mm-hmm. It was amazing. It was just like, oh, this is so awesome. And I went out for game, which, isn't my thing, but it was good. It was different. But, she was showing me right. And it was just like so nice because if it was just a number, if it was just transactional, you don't get to do those things. Mm-mm. And so for me, that's the beauty in it. So what advice would you give to somebody who's, what's coming, who's thinking about becoming an entrepreneur?
I would say, well, number one, it takes longer to get started than you think. And don't be fooled by your first client, because when you start a business, almost everybody, when you start a business, you got a couple of friends and family who will hire you. They'll give you a shot because they love you. That's not a business. You don't have a business. I know you said you don't like to sell, but you don't have a business until you sign someone who did not know you before this all started. And so, you have to be realistic. It's going to take longer, and you need to recognize that there is an end to the friends and family. They will come back around.
Right.
But you don't have a business till you are selling what you offer to people who don't know you, and figuring out how to get them to know you and introduce you. So I think that's the first thing. I think the other thing, and this is really hard for business owners as they're starting out, understanding the difference between who you sell to and who you target. You're starting out, you're not quite sure what your business is about, and you get all of these offers, and yes, I'll do that project, and yes, I'll do that project. And then when someone asks you what you do, instead of talking about what you really want to do, you're like, oh, well, I'm helping this company and this company. And the person walks away going, I have no idea what you do. Figure out who your core customer is. Figure out what you really want to do. And every time someone asks, that's what you say. Now, if somebody comes to you and says, hey, by the way, can you do this? Step back and figure out whether you want to or not. And, again, when you're first starting out, it's tough to be choosy. Right. But even in the early days, not every project is a good project. There are some that will swallow you whole, that will suck all of your energy. And when you're done, you'll have that paycheck, but nothing else.
Right.
So you got to figure out, does this fit, and is it worth doing this detour? I do small business marketing. I have other skills. And if a friend calls me and says, hey, we're going to do a team building session. Can you facilitate? Yeah, I can do that. But I don't go to a networking event saying I facilitate team building sessions. No, Des does that. I do marketing for small businesses, and staying focused on what you really do, what you really want to do, what you're really good at helps you build that business.
That's awesome. And it's funny that you say that until you sell, that person that you don't know, right? And when I say, I don't sell, of course I sell, but I don't. Of
course you sell.
Right? I mean, duh. But it's it's different. It's like when COVID hit, that changed everything because everything became digital. So the people that you met and the relationships that you built were online. And so I have clients like all over the country because of that. But again, it's building the relationship, and it's selling, but it's also building that relationship because people buy from you if they know, like, and trust you, right?
Absolutely. I think people have a lot of people have a misconception about selling.
Sorry.
No. I think a lot of people have this misperception that selling has to be hard sales, talking, sign here, press hard, you're making 2 copies. Okay.
Right.
No, the art of selling is the art of listening, and it is the art of matching what you do with what the customer needs. Yes. For me, it's a game. The truth is I got really good at sales. Now, I had the help of an amazing sales coach, but I got really good at sales, and I got very comfortable with talking about price, which is something that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with, and helped me get over that. If you ask me, my pricing, I could never say it's $150 an hour, but I learned to say it's $150. Now, nobody was confused. Nobody misunderstood and thought I was charging $1.50 an hour.
Right.
But I could say it's $1.50. I learned to ask people, do you have a budget? I learned to have those conversations. And I also learned how to say gracefully, no, I'm not going to discount that, or I don't think I'm a good fit for you.
Right.
And that's all part of sales.
Yeah, 100%. And knowing when to say no is huge, right?
Oh my God.
And when people, and I did a post on this, I don't know, a while ago, somebody came to me and said, how much are your websites? And it's like, we start at 3,500, 4,000, depends. It depends on how many pages it is, whatever. And, and he's like, oh, well, I spoke to Joe and he said he'd do it for $1,800. I said, then go to Joe. And he said, what? I said, this is my price. And
okay,
you pay for what you get.
I'm going to give you a better answer than just go to Joe.
Okay.
My because we got to a place where our prices were higher than that. I'm like, and people are like, your price is too high. I'm like, yes, you know what, my price is appropriate. You can have it done for less. I can give you the names of half a dozen companies in this city that will do the website for less. They won't do as good a job, and when your website doesn't work and you come back, I'll be happy to fix it. But at that point, the price will be X plus 20%. And the guy would look, well, why is it more if it's already built? Because I'm going to have to undo all the things they did wrong.
Thank you. See, we learned something new. Kofi, write that down in the back. So
yeah, I'm telling you, you have to learn how to say it with a straight face. But I'm like, and the funny thing is, it didn't happen often, but every now and then somebody would come back and go, you were absolutely right. Mm-hmm. Yes, I was. So do you want me to fix this now? Yes, please. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And it's so funny that you say that because I don't phrase it like that, but I have done that and they have come back and it's like, and I actually had one guy, that particular person came back and he said, hey, I really want to work with you. And I said, no. And he was like, why? And I said, because I know that we're going to start working together. We're going to be in the project and 3-4 months in, you're going to find somebody who's going to do it cheaper and you're going to leave. And I don't have time for that. No. And he was floored. He was like, now you don't want my money. And it was like, no, I don't want the headache. I didn't say that. I'm sure I implied it, but at the end of the day, it's almost like now it's almost not like who's a good customer for you. It's like who's not a good customer for you. Because at the end of the day, our time is so valuable. We're so busy and not busy being like busy. We're busy being productive. So when we're being productive, if we have somebody coming in and usurping our time no, it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
We used to do this exercise. We do it about once a year. And I'd ask everybody on my team to make a list of clients. If we could only work with 3 clients of all the companies that we're working with, if we could only work with 3, who would be on the list? And, usually there'd be about half a dozen between the whole team. The favorites would come up. And then the conversation was, why? What makes them a good client? Why do you feel like if we could only work? And we uncovered the characteristics of what made a good client. Was it an industry? Was it the kind of project? Was it how they treated us? What was it? And so then as new companies came in, we would look for those characteristics. The other half of that exercise was if we were going to fire a client tomorrow, if we had too much work and we were going to fire a client tomorrow, who do we fire? Wow. And that was an interesting conversation as well, because sometimes we would be like, okay, everybody points at the same client and we're like, we got to get rid of them. if we all feel this way,
right.
but but we would dissect, what is it about that client that's wrong? And again, what are the red flags? But we had one situation where everybody on the team said, we have to get rid of Bob. And Raven is sitting over in the corner going, really? I get along with Bob. Raven, congratulations. You're Bob's new account manager. Problem solved.
There you go. There you go.
But you can do this if you are a solopreneur. You can do this if you have a team. Right. We get into this mode where every client is good because they're paying us, blah, 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 blah. But if you stop and you really look at it, then you can start creating marketing that is designed to attract more of those people.
Your ideal client.
That you want.
Right.
And repel more of those people that you don't want.
Right. Right. That's, and a lot of people just don't, they don't realize that, especially in the very beginning, right? They're hungry. It's like they just want to work with everybody. And as we go on, it's like, overnight successes take 10 years. I always say that.
It's so true.
I know. And people don't get that. I had one guy that I was talking to, right before we left for Germany. And he goes, so your business is doing great. Your podcast is doing great. You're doing this show thing. It seems like you just popped up. I said, buddy, I've been busting my ass easily 2 years before. So we're celebrating 10 years in May. I'm like, I've been busting my ass for years to even get this right and to even know what I'm doing. I said, this is like the fruit of a lot of research, a lot of learning, a lot of kicks in the pants, a lot. Like this did not just happen, like my LinkedIn presence, people are like, oh my God, you're everywhere. And it's like, yeah, because it's taken a long time. And so that's like my favorite thing now is there's no overnight successes. So for entrepreneurs that are listening, that are seasoned, what's an obstacle that you've had to overcome? Or something that you may be going through now? I mean,
I think I don't know if it's an obstacle per se, but something that I think seasoned entrepreneurs wait too long to do. And that's plan their exit strategy. I sold my business after 19 years, but I did not start working on that 18 years and 10 months.
Wow.
I did not wait. I knew, I had talked to some of my employees. They did not want to buy the business. I had talked to my children. They did not want the business. And I had decided that I didn't have a timeline. I wasn't like, I need to be out by this time or this time, but I knew that there was a point at which I did not want to continue to run the business. And so this was a process that was probably 5 years in the making. I started looking at organizing my processes, streamlining my operations, documenting my systems, building a business that could run without me, so that when I was having conversations with people who wanted to buy the business and they'd say things like, well, but if you're not here, what happens? And I said, absolutely the same thing that happens when I am. Wow. And too often people, it's always so sad, they run these businesses for 20 years and then they're like, yeah, I just closed it down. What do you mean you just closed it down?
I know. I know.
What happened to your customers? Well, you just gave them? I just shut the doors. And it's because they're not planning for the exit. And I think even if you think you're going to do this for another 10 or 15 or 20 years, start thinking about, what do I have that's valuable? Mm-hmm. What would someone else want? What would someone else pay for? And what would they pay?
Yeah. I mean, you have to get evaluation. There's like so many things, right? That you have to do. And yeah, that's a really good one. See, and that's what I mean. Like, I've asked that question so many times, and I think you might be the second person to answer it that way. If I took like, you know, if you listen to this and you hear like all the other answers, it just kind of, it blows my mind because, you know, for me, it's like, we're just getting our footing at this point and things are really going well. And, you know, all of the things, and I'm 64 and I'm like, you know, by 72, I probably don't want to be running this anymore. If not, you know, like I see these numbers and it hurts my head because I can't wrap my brain around that. Right.
Yeah. That's, you know, when somebody says, well, you know, I want to be done at this age or this age. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I'm older than that.
I know. It's like it's freaking 6 years away, which is insane. It's like May 31st. Well, I shouldn't have thrown that out there. Cut that if we can. But, you know, in a couple of months, I'm going to be 64. And in
your Beatles' birthday.
My Beatles' birthday. That's right. When I'm 64. That's right. Will you still? I got to ask my clients that. I'm gonna like do a little video for my clients. Will you still need me?
But you know, the funny thing is that if you say that to someone who's a millennial, they don't know what you're talking about. So it only makes sense to people who are in that Beatles' birthday era.
Or people who are into, because I know some Gen Zers and some Gen Xers that are like Beatle fanatics, which cracks me up. God, I have like so many things I know I have like these like staple questions, but I feel like you're just like this wealth of information that could be really, well, you've done so much and you've done it successfully and you've exited successfully and you're doing what you love. And there are a lot of, you know, coaches out there that try to coach their clients to do what you've done. So, you know, there's like so much there. So when you decide, okay, did you decide that you were going to sell and you put it on market, or did somebody just come up to you and say, hey, I want to buy Round Peg?
So when you hit a certain, and I don't really know what the critical mass is, but there is a point at which your agency, you do start, I started getting offer letters. And a lot of them I just tossed in the trash. I wasn't interested.
Right.
I had a couple of conversations. I actually went all the way through the process with one business and chose not to close the deal because I knew my clients would hate him. And I couldn't do it.
Yeah, 100%.
And then I had another person reach out, and because I knew what the business was worth, because I knew what the other company was willing to pay, and he wanted to pay about a third of that. And I was like, we're not even finishing this conversation. And so when the company that ultimately did buy Round Peg reached out, start to finish, that conversation was almost 10 months. Now, I also think it was longer because of COVID. You know, we had started talking in February, and then COVID hit. And then we didn't have another conversation until April. And then we didn't know what we were doing. And then we had another conversation in September, and then it picked up steam. So they found me. And I think part of that is I was very visible, very active in the community. I had a great online presence for the business. So and they had decided they were looking to buy a company in this market. And I know they talked to several of my competitors, and it was the right offer at the right time. I came out ahead in that deal. I don't think they really understood our business model, and I think they struggled with what they purchased.
Were you able to help with that, or
how do I put this nicely? They thought they knew, and I'm like, okay, you do you.
It's funny that you say that, and I have to be careful because, okay, a friend of mine had a business for, I think it was like 20, 30 years or something like that. And she sold it.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like 5 years ago. And they ran it. And this was this is a multi-million-dollar, really well-known, successful, amazing business. And the new owner just ran it to the ground with help, with even having my friend come in once a week for 6 months and guide them, and they still just ran it to shit. And it's like, how do you?
Know what? Here's the thing: you have to be emotionally ready when you sell your business. You have to separate out the personal and your identity from the business and recognize it as a business transaction. And I did not always do that. And there were certain months that I would get annoyed. I'd get more annoyed. And then the check would show up. And you know what? I wasn't annoyed anymore.
You weren't annoyed anymore.
So, you have to be ready on a lot of levels. You got to know what your business is worth. You've got to be prepared. You got to figure out, you need to know what you want your piece of it to look like when it's over. Mm-hmm. Do you want to be on the payroll? Do you want a consulting gig? Do you want to just walk away? Mm-hmm. And when you walk away, what do you want to take with you? And recognize that no one is going to run it the way you run it.
Right.
They're not.
Right. Yeah. Wow. And I think that's the hardest thing for me personally right now, because I'm invested in every single one of my clients, right? I'm invested in their success. I'm invested in their growth. And I'm so immersed into my business that it's like, I couldn't walk away, right? Like there's no way. Like I would have to, there's like a lot of different things that I would have. And the thought of it, like when we were just talking about it, I just got like agita right here. It was just like, oh, I can't, there's no way I could do it right
But you're 10 years in, you're not 20 years in.
You're 100% right.
At 10 years, I wasn't ready either. And there's also, again, you get to that moment where you're like, it's okay. I'm ready. I'm ready to do something else. And I was ready to do something else. I am really having a ball teaching at the university level. I love being a college professor. It's way fun.
And I can see you being amazing at it. So, because you have like this, and there's another thing too, that a lot of business owners don't have, and that's empathy, right? You have to, I think in order to be successful, especially today, you have to have a certain amount of empathy. And I can just see you in front of like the class, just kind of teaching people. I can also see you being a hard ass, but you know, because, but that's important, right? Because you can't just give people a free pass. I mean, they have to learn. So how are they going to learn? So I could really, I think that's like amazing that you're doing that. So what, first off, like we're nearing the hour, which it always goes so fast. What, and I usually don't ask this, what is something that you would want people to, when they hear your name, what is something that you want them to think of?
I think that when I was in corporate, I hated the fact that so much importance was given to titles. So that when I started my business, there's never been a title on my business card. It's always been just me. And if I had to put words, I think I go back and forth between marketing strategist and marketing educator. And I think right now where I am and what I would like them to think of first is me as a marketing educator, as someone who's got a lot of knowledge and willing to share.
And that's so important because there are so many people out there that, I mean, dare I say, learn from the wrong people. I mean, you know, I remember, and when I tell you that you made me like look at things differently, because the people that you know came before you, where you know I was learning my craft and everything. Oh my God! And then I sat down and I had a conversation with you, and it was like, okay, now this makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I love breaking down complex topics into manageable bites. Right. And I love that aha moment when somebody hears something and goes, oh, that's fun for me.
Right. No, and that's how I am. I love to, because everybody talks tech talk and it's like, oh my God, stop with it. Tech talk. It's like, nobody wants to hear that. So I explain things in ways that people can consume it. And I think that's one of the things that, you know, keep my clients with me and, you know, keep other people coming back, is because I don't talk over their head. I don't, you know. So, okay, well, first off, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time, you know, to sit with me and my audience. And I know they're going to glean like a gazillion nuggets from this. Where can people find you?
Several places. First off, LinkedIn. That's where I'm hanging out. That's where I'm having the most fun. And just look for me on LinkedIn. Certainly look for my podcast, More Than a Few Words, wherever you listen to podcasts. And I am trying something new. I am writing on Medium. So if you are on Medium, look for me there.
Ooh. Okay. So what's Medium for people who don't know?
Medium is it is a blogging platform. It's been around for quite a while. And basically anything that you would write and put on your blog, you can share on Medium and reach a wider audience. It's a really interesting community, and I'm just beginning to kind of scratch the surface, and I'm finding other people who write about the same things I write about and reading their articles, getting feedback on some of mine. I also like that I can open up my Medium feed and browse through poetry or articles on science, and just because people just write about anything that's interesting to them. And it's interesting. It's fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, wow. This has been just an absolute pleasure. So I want to say thank you again. And the last question that I ask all my guests is, what lights your fire? And it could be personal, professional, and it could be personal and professional. Like, you got the floor. So what lights you up?
So I've already talked about teaching and hanging out with people. I love traveling. I love being somewhere different. And people will ask me, well, where's your favorite place that you've traveled to? And I'll look around and go, well, where am I today? I love being in different places and seeing it both with my eyes and through the lens of my camera. And I love sharing some of the photos when I'm all done. But not so much getting on the airplane, but getting off an airplane is fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Hang on one second. I'm going to say goodbye to the audience, and I'll be right back. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. This is our third season, I think. This is like crazy. This is our third season. It has been amazing doing this podcast, and people like Lorraine are the reason, because you get these amazing guests on that have this wealth of experience and knowledge, and this is like one of my favorite things to do. This is like my passion project. So thank you all for hanging out for another hour plus. Go check out Lorraine on LinkedIn. She's awesome. Reach out to her, connect. I'm sure she'll, connect with you. Don't be weird about it. Just anyway, but reach out, and also, subscribe, like, download, share, do all the things. The more you do that, the higher we get up, and the more we get noticed, and we're, kind of on a roll right now. So that would be amazing. And when you subscribe, you get a notification every week of a new episode, and who doesn't want a new episode of the cookbook? So thank you guys again so much for watching. And until next time, go out and find what lights your fire. See ya.